former President Donald Trump narrowly escaped an assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. I-24 News' Joe Brown has the latest.
The shots heard around the world. At a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, former US President Donald Trump survived what American law enforcement has called an assassination attempt by mere millimeters.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Several shots were heard whilst Trump was addressing the crowd. The former president with a brief moment of realization before ducking to the ground with several Secret Service members jumping on him for cover. After Secret Service snipers located and killed the lone gunman, Trump's guards were told he was safe to get back up. The bloodied president giving a triumphant sign before being whisked away to the hospital. A couple of hours after the attack, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform that a bullet pierced through the upper part of his right ear and he heard whizzing sounds before feeling the bullet go through his skin and that, quote, much bleeding took place. But whilst Trump left the hospitals in the early hours of Sunday, one rally attendee was killed with what witnesses said was a gunshot wound to the head. Two others, not including Trump, were injured. This incident received mass condemnation from across the political spectrum and all across the world, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
We all watched with shock yesterday the criminal assassination attempt on former president and candidate for the presidency of the United States, Donald Trump. This is not only a heinous crime, it is also an attempt to assassinate American democracy. Fortunately, Trump miraculously survived. I would like to send him in my name, in the name of my wife, Sarah, in the name of the ministers of the Israeli government, and in the name of the entire Israeli people, our best wishes for a speedy recovery and a return to full strength.
And Trump's rival in the presidential race, Joe Biden.
Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this.
The FBI has identified the shooter as 20-year-old Pennsylvania native Thomas Matthew Crooks. According to eyewitnesses, Crooks shot Trump with a rifle from a rooftop about 200 meters away. His motive is unclear. However, he had previously registered as a Republican voter.
The fate of Hamas military leader Mohammed Deif is still unknown after he was targeted by an Israeli strike yesterday. That comes as hostage negotiations were on a positive path and now are stuck again. I-24 News' Jody Notilovitz reports.
Commander Mohammed Deif is well and directly overseeing the operations of the Hamas military wing, is what one Hamas official told the Associated Press a day after Israel said it targeted the Hamas military chieftain in an airstrike. But in a press conference Saturday evening, Prime Minister Netanyahu said this was still unclear.
The State of Israel, through the Israeli army and the security agency, struck in Gaza, aiming to thwart Mohammed Deif and his deputy, Rafah Salama. It is not clear that the two have been killed, but either way, we will get to the whole of the leadership of Hamas.
The United Kingdom's new foreign minister arrives in the Middle East today. Minister David Lammy will be closely watched for hints of any shifts in British policy under the new Labour government. With more on that, here's our correspondent Robert Swift.
Britain's top diplomat flew into Israel Sunday to set out his new government's foreign policy stance. On his schedule are meetings with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority Chief Mahmoud Abbas. But his first public statement was due to events in the United States.
I condemn the political violence that we saw in the United States.
President Mahmoud Abbas blames Hamas for the ongoing war in the Gaza Strip. Ariel Saran, back to you here in the studio. It's no secret there's not much love between Hamas and Fatah. We know that, but this is an unusual statement.
Very unusual, and I think very surprising. And it comes at a time when not only Israel is discussing with mediators and its partners about the day after in the Gaza Strip who will assume control. And until just a few weeks ago, Netanyahu pretty much marked off the PA as a potential force or body, that entity that could.
Female soldiers, Israeli soldiers, were wounded yesterday in northern Israel after a Hezbollah attack. I-24 News' Zach Anders is live now in northern Israel with the latest from there. Zach.
Yeah, and we haven't heard an update on their condition, and usually that's a good sign. We did know last night that one was seriously wounded when they were evacuated to the medical center. No updates yet at this point in the day, so we're going to have to wait and see what exactly took place there. A hallmark event somewhat. I mean, knowing that this was 4 injuries in one go, and from what we've been told, this was from falling debris after an interception was made. This was not the direct impact of a drone. So we're still trying to learn more about this. It happened in Kiryat Shmona last night, a major event there. As we zoom out, we see continued strikes by the IDF in Lebanon, lighter than we have seen in previous days, but still there. And as we go out even further, we're still trying to learn more about what took place last night in Damascus with a strike that took place there on what the IDF says was a Syrian military facility. The player.
And now NATO is establishing a liaison office in Jordan, which is an interesting move. Let's talk about this with Gabriel Noronha, former U.S. State Department advisor on Iran. Thank you very much for joining us again. How do you see this move by Jordan, by NATO?
So NATO's been in a process really for some years now to increase its regional presence abroad in the Middle East, as well as other theaters like Asia Pacific. Just last year, NATO established a similar office in Japan, using it as a base to coordinate efforts with South Korea, Australia, Philippines. And so this effort by NATO in Jordan here is a little bit more of a reflection that NATO is not purely and only a European alliance, that all threats are combined at this point. The way that the Russian threat has posed itself in Europe, we've seen, is now linked very strongly with Iran.
The Israelis flocked to the beaches this summer with security concerns still in the air. Here's more in the next report.
Summer in Israel. Despite the intense heat and the shadow of the Gaza war, the beach remains the favorite place for most Israelis.
We waited a long time. There's some sun, waves rising all the time. War, no war, we come here all the time to relax, to the sea, to surf, to enjoy.
But summer also brings dangers. While we're relaxing at the beach, someone has to be watching over us.
Everything regarding saving people generally happens outside the designated beaches. And when there are no lifeguards, that's when we enter the picture.
I want to turn to the other war zone here in Israel, the north of the country, which is on fire. Hezbollah continues to launch rockets and drones from Lebanese territory towards northern Israeli communities on a daily basis. Over 70,000 Israeli civilians have been displaced from their homes for over 9 months now. Just today, the Lebanese terror group launched a rocket as well as a drone that was successfully intercepted by the IDF defense system. In response, Israeli fighter jets attacked Hezbollah targets in 5 locations in southern Lebanon. Let's cross over to our correspondent Zach Anders, who's in northern Israel. Zach.
Overnight,